All right. I'm really reinforcing an interview because I think this is one of the best way to collect, such data. Yes, you can observe, but I feel like also observation is culpable to a lot of biasness because the insights sometimes you draw from observations are morphed into some are morphed with some internal judgment based on how on the social setting you've grown up with, based on your own beliefs. So I think interviews are much better, and I want to show you just how some of the things to do if, for example, you go to Kibera, or if you go to you approach the people that you want to talk to. Remember, you create a stakeholders map. You have the listed down the people you need to talk to. So how do you prepare yourself? How do you actually do the interview? The first thing is that you need to prepare. So, for example, you have reached out to the CEO of an NGO that's actually doing something on the ground about the problem, and the CEO has agreed. Um, but first of all, how do you even write an email? Let me just share this slide. How do you request for an interview? Maybe it's a CEO somewhere, um, or somebody who's funding a solution. Well, you want to keep it very brief. They don't have a lot of time, and one of the best formats that I found is this format, where the subject of the email is very brief. Request for information interview. Of course, you put the recipient's email over there. Then again, you just say, dear, you know their name. Maybe you search them on LinkedIn, and then just have this format of an email, right? And of course, include the time that you want to spend on the interview so that they can actually slot that and schedule that. It also helps to indicate that you're a student. I've found that a lot of people, are willing to talk to students. And if you can email them with your student email, it does help out a lot. So you can do that, and immediately you're able to request for, sorry for that, that's my pen falling. Immediately you're able to request for an interview, and they respond. You need to start preparing for that interview. And the best way to prepare for an interview is, first of all, to brainstorm questions that you will ask, right? You don't want to be in a setting where the person you need to talk to, even if it's the person facing the problem, is seated across the desk, is seated across you, and you're blank. You don't have any questions. You had them, you thought you had them. Now that you've seated down, you're sitting down, all of that is out the window. You don't want that. So the first thing is you need to brainstorm questions that you will ask. Why? Because you can't find that at the end of the conversation you have only asked useless questions that at the end of the day did not give you any information. So you need to brainstorm questions that will draw out the juice, that will draw out the insights as much as possible. So think about the questions. The questions need to be open-ended, right? Questions that allow the person you're asking to feel free, and talk to you, and talk to you about things that you didn't even imagine. Because if it's just a yes or no question, then that's the only thing you're gonna get. Yes, no, right? You want the questions to be as open-ended as possible. Allow that person to be as free as possible. Refine the questions. And how do you refine the questions? It's by doing a dry run on somebody. uh, Once you're able to practice the questions with somebody, you're able to realize, oh, yes, I did brainstorm like 10 questions, but 3 questions out of the 10 don't make sense. And you're able to refine and add new questions, or combine questions that, that can be combined, right? Again, you only have like 15 minutes. You don't have time to ask like 20 questions, right? And remember, in each question, they'll be answering it like a story. So you need to combine questions that can be combined, right? Ensure you're neat in appearance. This happens when, especially, it's a physical meeting. Because imagine you're the person being interviewed, and the person asking the questions comes, all shaggy, very dirty, smelly. Yeah, that cuts the conversation very quickly, right? So you want to ensure that you're very neat, very open. Somebody immediately can talk to you, right? It helps to go with somebody else, somebody who can take notes that you can so that you can focus on the user. So that's how you prepare for that interview, right? That's how you do the preparation. So what happens when you're now in the interview? That boom, I'm here. You're the one asking the question, and the person you're asking the question is just across you. What happens? Well, 90% listening and 10% asking. You don't want to be the one always talking, right? Allow the other person to talk to you. Ask to understand and not validate, right? Because I always find I've seen context where we're going with some students on these sort of workshops, and they're at this phase and they're like, yeah, it's true, it is painful, right, is it true, right? They're trying to push it. It is very expensive, right. No, you're not trying to validate. You're not pushing a narrative on them. Ask to understand. Ask them, how do you feel about the cost of unga, right? Allow them to tell you whether to them it's expensive or cheap or affordable. It's not you to enforce that belief. It's them to tell you. So ask to understand and not validate. Encourage stories, follow tangents, because stories, they draw out things that you never thought possible. Take as many notes as possible. At that point, information is just flying at you. You don't have time to start analyzing that information. Just write down the notes. Or better yet, have a colleague, have a friend you're working with together, take the notes down as much as possible so that you can keep eye contact with the interviewee. Don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes when the person you're asking is silent, we feel the need to fill that void by talking. You don't have to do that. Give them room to think. Ask unpacking investigative questions. Again, I've mentioned this. Don't ask yes and no questions. And I've sort of given you an example of what unpacking questions look like over here, So I think I've mentioned what to do. For example, if it was me, immediately I'm with this person, I'll start by sharing a little bit about myself so that they feel I'm not just sucking data from them, that I'm also sharing. That say I'm a student at Daystar, I'm working on this problem that I feel is affecting people this way, and then I'll keep it short, and I try to build a rapport by asking how is your day, just to build a rapport and make the conversation really easy. Then I'll move into asking the questions, and maybe ask who else they will recommend, because sometimes they do know people who will give you even more insight. After that, they'll be like, oh, but then you need to talk to Nani. They have even more insights. See? And that's how you're able to collect even more information. Thank you.